we're not going to talk about iPhone features and how to use this setting or that setting. We're going to talk about photographic techniques to help you because we're making a baseline assumption you've got some familiarity with with your camera, be it an iPhone or an Android or or maybe a proper camera. Anyhow, so having said that, one of the things we think about is okay, well, we're getting ready to go out on a ride and we think we're gonna, have a good time and we'd like to capture some of that for perpetuity, whatever, to share with our friends. So, what are you looking to achieve on your ride? Are you looking to, like, in this case, my gang here, that's me there. Or let's see, can I turn that on? Hold on. Yeah, that's me and my band of brothers here, the Cuatros Hermanos. We ride up McKinsey Pass every year. Are you interested in the scenery? We've got beautiful routes that the Dirty Freehub guys have built all over the country, here in Oregon. Are you just looking to hang with your buds and have a good time? Or maybe, you know, for for a lot of us, I think it's probably all three of these kinds of things. So, you know, why don't we figure out how to better document these things and use our cameras? And we see a lot of photos that kind of look like this. And we're gonna go through a whole bunch of different examples here. Well, here's the nice shot of somebody's butt.
So
Riding.
Don specifically wrote me and said, did I have any non-examples? And I kept sending him picture after picture after picture. And so it was pretty funny. And he kept going,
Yeah,
yep, that's pretty much a non-example. Yep, that's pretty much a non-example. So it became a big joke between the two
yeah,
of us.
yeah. It's like, please stop. So here, I
Yes.
mean, there's some okay things about this picture and some not okay things, and it's the same thing here. We're looking at this gal's backside here. She's riding down the trail, and it's, who is this? You might know personally, but it doesn't really capture everything. Then, what do you think, guys? To out there to the viewers, what do you think about this one? Anybody got a comment?
Yeah, just give it a second. Go ahead and write your comments. What's wrong with this photo? They're thinking. One new
Anybody?
message.
Ah, well, I don't know. I say 18. There are 18 new messages.
Yeah. Oh, great. Great, great, great. It's hard to see with the
So,
shadows. Backlighting is an issue.
yeah,
Backlit a bit.
right, exactly. All of those things. Like, so the sun's coming in here and it's, hitting the lens, and there's lens flare. Then there's a part of a person over here, maybe more because there's another tire here. These guys are all bunched up. You really can't tell what's going on there. Um, you know, and if you knew how to do basic cropping, you could improve the photo by cropping this thing, but not everybody knows how to do that. Here's another example. There's another person over here somewhere, and this guy's kind of relaxing on his bike. Here we get here's the sun flare coming in again, and nobody's really looking at the camera, which sometimes you don't necessarily want to do, but they're they're not organized very well, and it it does a marginal job of documenting the scene. And here you go, somebody a little tipsy. Yeah, they they're
Wow,
off kill.
that one gives me a headache, Don. It's just for
Yeah.
how out of whack
Well,
that is.
there's a technique in photography called the Dutch angle, which is where you intentionally tilt the camera to create images like this. But I don't think that was necessarily intentional. Here's an interesting barn or whatever. You can't really tell what it is because it's in the shade and it's pretty dark and it's kind of almost straight on, and so there's not a lot of um, you know volume to it. You can't really ascertain what it's all about. And then this is like, what the heck is going on here? I mean, it's like, this guy's checking his phone over here. These guys are like, they look like they're on a hike. A couple other folks just hanging out on the rail. Maybe they're getting ready to go for a ride. There might be a restroom over here or something. So it's not, yeah, it's kind of helter skelter. There's not a lot to really communicate. It's not, now some examples. These are shots I took to brag a little bit. These are a couple of my buddies, and you know, this is a nice shot. This is Paulina Peak here again in south of Bend. Um, this was
So,
this
so
year.
Don, can you just slow down just a little bit, not click
Sure.
through so fast so I can look at them a little bit longer? Yeah, great.
Okay.
That's all right.
All right, so here we are. We're kind of riding down, down the road. This is mostly a road ride on this one, you know. But here, what I've done is I've put my buddies over here on the right hand side, and I'm going to talk about this later. I'm using the road as an S curve, and that's a technique we're going to talk about in a little bit. And then I've captured Paulina Peak here with all the snow that's still on it and everything, and so it's a nicely balanced image.
So, so Don, in this one, I feel like I can really feel the surface of the road. And I really like that part of it. Was that part of your intention? I mean, the road feels so close to me. I feel like I'm actually on the bike ride with you.
Right. Well, part of it is this, again, it's the composition. And I'm going to talk about why are these guys over here on this side? And, moving in this direction. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second.
Okay.
And it's a technique that's pretty common. Here we have different areas around town, around Bend in our area that have larches, and every fall they turn yellow, and when I've been living here like 5 years, and when we first came to Bend, we'd go hiking over in Shevlin Park, which is where this was taken, and we'd look and we go, oh my God, what are these conifers? They're dying, and then come to find out, no, they're larch trees. They do this naturally, and and they're beautiful. And every year we wait for the larches to do their thing, and now here's another interesting thing. So here's we've got this is kind of a challenging photo because you see all these bright spots and then shadows. So this is called dappled light. And dapple light can really play havoc with it. But I was able to capture my buddies' faces. We've got them posed in a nice line going up this way. We've got we if you're a Bend resident, you probably know what this guy is over here. This is the Flaming Chicken, and it's over in the Phil's Trails network. There's actually it's a mountain bike trail network that actually has a roundabout, and this is the roundabout. But anyhow, you can see their faces. They're not blocking each other, and for the most part, they're not in the shade, that kind of a thing. So that's a.
And Don, did you purposely take this guy off of his bike and have him standing on this thing to make it more symmetrical? Was he standing on the ground and then you asked him to go up? Tell us
right.
about that.
Yeah, so I go, okay, here's a great place, and this is a guy named Rob Powers, and Gary Rand, and Dirk, um, and so we stopped, to take a break because we like to do that. And so Rob had his bike over against the tree, and I said, "Hey, go over there and get on the rock." And so I posed these guys. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's a great. I like this photo a lot. It's a great photo. And then we talk about achieving a goal, that kind of a thing. We like to ride McKenzie Pass every year as soon as it opens up. Before the traffic gets really crazy, and that happens to be my bike there. And then it's not always on the trail. It's what you see from the trail. And so I am now riding along the Deschutes River Trail up from Benham Falls to an area called Slow. And I come around the corner, and this is where there's a bend in the river here. and there's a couple of guys fly fishing. I'm going, oh my God. So I stop, I get off the bike, I walk over to the side of the trail, out of the way of anybody else who might be coming in. And I wait for him to cast. And so I got you know, the line, the fishing line going out as they're casting there. And, I got a bunch of really nice shots at that location. So, if you're out about, you want to pay attention to what else is out there that you can remember, do you remember this?
Yeah.
It's a way of documenting the ride.
So
Here,
Don, in a picture like that, just for a second, when you're standing there and you're taking that photo, how many shots will you shoot that for? Will you just do one, or are you doing like 10? Give
no,
us a
usually I'm not doing 10, but like in that case, I think I did probably at least a half a dozen. And a lot of it was, and I wasn't using an iPhone. I was using my one of my cameras. And I was waiting for one of the two of them to cast because what I wanted to do was catch the wonder if I go back here. Previous. Yeah, what I wanted to do was catch the line. And I knew that when he started to cast, that the light would catch that thing and and light it up, and that's exactly what it did. And I have another image that's in a different orientation of this fisherman here doing the same thing, and it turned out really great. But I took enough to make sure that I captured the essence of the scene and what I was experiencing, and it wasn't just a run and gun one shot. What I've learned over the years is that never take just one photo. Big
Yeah.
risk.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Take several, even like group shots. Totally dangerous because depending upon there's probably some formula for some axiomatic formula that says, given the size of the crowd, you need to take X amount of pictures to make sure that everybody's eyes are open.
Right.
Because somebody for sure will, have some weird look on their face or their eyes will be closed or whatever, that kind of a thing. So, here we are. I was riding through Shevlin Park again, and here's those larches, and it's like, look up, stop. What do you see looking straight up? I literally just turned the camera straight up above my head.
So did you
And
have to lay down on the ground for that, or you just
no, I was able to just stand there. I was just striding my bike and I just, looked straight up. And, so in this case, this is um, in plain view. So we're on this course called In Plain View. And, so what I've got here is, some people working it, they're moving it, but I've got them coming at me. So I've got the riders moving in my direction towards the viewer, and they're fully separated so you can see them. And in the background is necessarily, well, it was cloudy that day, as you can see. But that was fine because the subjects, like this guy's wearing a really nice bright red jersey underneath his vest, so the color really helps pop things out. Speaking
so
of color,
Don,
yes, ma'am.
before you take off on the next one, I know, like, I was on that ride with you, and I know
Right.
one of the things that you did was we had all stopped for a break. And I know, like, when I shoot group rides, it's really hard because the group is trying to move forward. You're trying to keep up with them. Like, I'm not particularly the fastest cyclist, the same thing, it's like it's hard. And one of the tricks that you and I have talked a lot about is that when the group takes a break, I'll take a swig of water and then I move down the trail from them. And I line up a shot and then I'm taking my break and then I'm just waiting for them to come. Then they're
Right.
going to go by me and now I'm going to jump on my bike and catch up with them. So if some of you haven't really thought about your breaks that way, that's a really good way, in my mind, to get shots like this. I love this
Yeah.
picture. There's a whole series that he did of all the riders that came through
Yeah.
that on
Yeah.
that.
we're going to see another one on that from this
Yeah,
ride
yeah,
in a little bit here.
yeah.
Hey,
So,
Don, we
you
had a
know,
question about how much editing you're applying to some of these.
well, I'm cropping. I'm making sure the horizon is straight. There'll be, some things I'm going to talk about later. Um, and then, a lot of the editing thing is really there's composition and capturing the the essence of the information that you want, and then afterwards there's the editing process. Now, and depending upon what kind of camera you're using and how you're situated, the angle of view, where people are standing or moving, that kind of a thing, um, you could end up with an image that would benefit from um, some cropping, that kind of a thing. I use some Adobe products. I use Adobe Lightroom. I use Photoshop. So I have the ability to manage and modify the tonal contrast, the tonal values within the image, that kind of a thing. But and a lot of it is not. I mean, one of the things to this point, I think maybe I can put people at ease a little bit is um, the if you have a fairly current phone from Apple or from any of the Samsung, any of these guys, their technology has really improved. You can really make pretty decent images without a whole lot of editing. And then, but they also have applications that allow you to do the editing and that's one of the things I'll tell you at the end is, learn how to do that stuff if you're really interested. Um, but right out of your camera, right out of your phone, you can get quite a good result. Um, I like to use a traditional camera, but that's just me, you know. So and so here you're recapturing the fall color. This happened to be up in the Metolius area, and then you can end up with scenes like this. Nice panoramic view, the mountains in the distance, and
I
here's the
I
trail.
really like how that tree just kind of,
Yeah, and the tree. So the tree's kind of like
captures it.
it's like an anchoring element. It's not you. I mean, you could argue that it's a little off balance because I don't have anything on the right hand side over here to to balance it. But I think it works. It works for me. That's for sure. So um, I think a lot of people have heard of Ansel Adams and know who he is. He's quite a famous photographer. Um, and here's one of his quotes. I love this thing. It's just making good photographs, just knowing where to stand. And there's unbelievable amount of truth to this. It's just moving your feet a couple of inches left or right, or moving up and down a trail, or it can really make the difference between a mediocre shot and something that's really classical. So now into the guts of this thing a little bit. Okay, so this is, as I say here, a very short list, okay, of some basic guidelines that you can, kind of nibble on. And if you start with these things, and you'll be able to move. Well, number one, you'll experience a more satisfactory result. You'll be happier with your photos, and that should in turn motivate you to learn more. And it's all about learning every day. Learn something new. So part of it is, what are you taking a picture of? How do you frame that? There's these techniques for where you place objects in the frame as you're composing your photo. And one of the most common ones, very widely known as the rule of thirds. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about alignment and balance, and then S curves and leading lines, which are two other elements that are very common. And, every one of you has seen examples of this. And you may not know what you saw, but you'll recognize it looking if look forward again. So first thing you got to decide is, what are you going to shoot? What are you trying to capture? Is it, a person? Is it a scene? Is it an animal? Is it a flower? What are you trying to, take a photo of? And then wine break. Then, what are if you're okay, you're looking at the scene and you go, okay, what's the most important thing here? What am I really focused on? Is there one thing? Because, a lot of people, they'll they'll look at something and there's like all these things that are interesting. And what you really need to do in order to make an interesting photograph is to focus on the most important thing. What is it? You can take multiple photos of the same scene, but prioritize the primary element in the image that you want to focus on. And then as you're looking at it, you've got your phone up there in front of you, can it be isolated from other things? If it's a person, is there a tree growing out of their head? How many how many people have seen a photo of, somebody along the side of a trail and, you're taking a picture of them with their bike there and there's a tree or a branch or something growing right out of their head, and if you had moved a step to the left, that would have gone away, so that's just a little example of something to, pay attention to. And then, this thing here, biting off too much than more than you can chew here. Remember that photo that we showed earlier? I think there it is here. Yeah. Like, whoa, way too much going on here. It's completely out of control. There's no focal point. It's just like a whole bunch of bikers hanging around waiting to do some, looks like they're just waiting for Linda to tell them to get going and we're going to take off on a
Pretty
ride.
much true.
Yeah. Yeah. So, wait, okay, there's nothing wrong with this. This is the normal activity, right? But don't, think about, if you're going to try and shoot the gang, get them all together and organize them, be bossy and, say, we want to take a group photo or something. So, all right, now let's talk about the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds this thing is very fundamental in all photography. If you read about anything at all, you'll see this pop up. And there's the golden circle and the golden triangle, and there's a variety of ways of bisecting or intersecting the frame using different techniques. And this is one of the most common. And it's a process where you divide the image into a grid, and then you place the key subjects, in this case, the writers, at the intersection of one of those grids. And what this provides is it provides structure in the image. It increases the overall appeal. It provides some balance, to your photographs. And so instead of having, them over on the right-hand side or over further on the left or up higher, this is, the one application of the rule of thirds. And we'll see some more examples in a little bit. And then there's some other things that will make you crazy. Well, anyhow, it makes people like myself crazy, which is alignment and balance. So, the horizon, you look out at the horizon, is it kiltered? Is it at an angle? You're standing there, it's level. So your eye is seeing a horizon and it is a level horizon. And when you're looking at a building or trees, they're straight up and down. They're not falling in or, flaring out or what have you. So verticals are another area that you need to pay attention to. Verticals should be vertical. And then when you're looking at the overall image, there are usually, three areas: the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. And for the most part, in order to create a consistently pleasing image, you want the amount of space taken up by each of these areas to be roughly equal. So we can look at that. So, here we've got a situation where we've got Ryder in the back. What I've done here is I've used the rule of thirds matrix, right? That's what these little white lines are. And so this rider is way up in the middle up here in the background, and the middle ground's kind of nothing but dirt, and the foreground's not much better. So it's really kind of out of balance. Now in this case, it's the opposite. So there's a lot of sky. You can see that the trees are kind of crashing in here, and this is from tilting your phone or your camera when you're taking the picture. And so in all of these cases, the element we're shooting for is the cyclist, right? We want to capture the cyclist. And here they're in the foreground, in the middle of the image, and way too much sky up here. So here's a better image. It's kind of a nasty environment. You got a lot of dapple light in all three of these examples, but we've got the cyclist here more in the middle ground, and some towards the intersection over here on the rule of thirds, and the amount of space occupied by the background, the middle ground, and the foreground are fairly well balanced. So here's another example. So this is the bridge south of Benham Falls, going across the river. And again, here's the rule of thirds with your dotted lines. And you can see how what I've done here is shared the amount of space equally among each one of the areas of the image itself, the middle ground, the foreground, and the background. And so it's
Don,
consistent.
So Don, we have a question, which is, what is your take on shooting wide and then cropping to effect? So I could shoot this much wider and then crop it back down. So what's your attitude toward that?
I don't have a disposition one way or the other. On a technical basis, if you're shooting wide and then cropping it back down, depending upon what you want to do with that image, and what kind of device you're using to capture the image, you could end up with a much smaller file that you can't necessarily won't create a nice print, that kind of a thing. And so that's kind of a technical nit. But if you're just thinking about composition, I would say, yeah, you can do that. I do that. And then because what's interesting is I'll be looking at a scene, and I'll take a photo, and then I'll be looking at it later, and I'm going, oh man, this is so much more interesting over here. How come I didn't see that? And the piece that I'm referring to is the result of a crop. So you can yield some very interesting photos by doing that, by shooting wide and cropping. I would say, if you have the opportunity, do both. If you're shooting tighter and you're following these compositional rules, and things are, your balance is fine, and you're observing your placement of your primary subject and on using the rule of thirds, that kind of a thing. Then you could end up with a much larger image in terms of a file that then you could do more with it with. Now, if you're just going to be using social media, you don't need a high resolution. You don't need a 40 megapixel image, that kind of a thing. But if you're looking to print it, obviously you'd want to have a higher resolution image. Does that answer the question?
Yep, yep. Thank you. That's interesting.
Okay. So, all right, S curves
S curves.
and leading lines. We've all seen them. So, S curves, you can't go on a ride and not see an S curve. They're everywhere. And what they do is they help draw the user's attention and drive. See how this road takes you through the image. And over here, this is a fence. This was over on the Zumwalt Prairie, actually.
Mm.
And this old fence takes you around and you can see a road coming in there. So, S curves can be created. So the reason I use these two images is that, they can be, created by a road or by some other man-made object. In this case, a fence line, that old dilapidated fence out on the prairie somewhere, but, what they do is they provide you some balance and a way to draw the viewer's eye through the image as they're viewing it. And so, be aware of that. It could be a dirt trail that goes this way. And there's another example coming up here in a little bit.
Don, you and I have talked about how, you can use navigation even to really
Oh,
help
yeah, right.
look
Yeah,
for-
good point. This is a good
look
point.
for it. Right, right. I'll be looking at my map and I see this big curve coming up. The first thing I do is I start reaching for my phone and trying to line up my cyclist. So I'll be like, hey, can you move a little bit over to the right? Because it looks like we're going to come around this S curve and it'll be a perfect shot. I do that all the time.
Yeah, so that's a good point that Linda makes. If because I think a lot of us are using, a Wahoo or Ride with GPS or a Garmin or whatever. We're to navigate, and you can see where the route's going to go. And if you're actively looking to capture scenes while you're out on the road, pay attention to the navigational device. Use that as something that helps you determine where you might find a really good view of something. And
yeah, and Don, I was going to add to that the other side of it too. I didn't think about it. I was thinking about it yesterday. Is when I start seeing that we're going to crest a hill, I figure there's going to be a really interesting shot with the cyclist going down. Yeah, anytime we're going to change the direction of where we're going, usually it's, we're cresting over a hill, we're coming down.
Yeah.
Now I've got a nice shot of it going down and it's going to be straight.
Right.
Like I'm looking for this one you've got on your left here. That would be me cresting up over a hill. I know that before I even get there by looking at my navigation. So that's one of the tricks I really like to use a lot, is using navigation to help me.
Yeah. So like leading lines, they're like the cousin to S curves. They serve the same purpose, which is help guide and direct the viewer to a point of interest. And so here I've got this road. I think this is Tumalo Reservoir Road.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Yeah. Headed out towards the dam there, out towards Tumalo Dam. Anyhow, the point of interest is the mountain. And I'm smack in the middle of the road. Be careful, watch the traffic, people. You don't want to be roadkill out here. Clearly there's some symmetry here, and the road leads the viewer's eye right to the point of interest. And again, like I mentioned in the earlier slide, it doesn't have to be a road like this. It can be, like in this case again, a fence. It just happens to be a road accompanying it along the side too. But they tend to. So one of the bigger differences between an S curve and a leading line is leading lines tend to be straight over the distance of the or within the frame of the image, that kind of thing. So, questions, anybody?
So I have a question on the photo on the right. It's not centered, right?
No.
So that leading line is centered. Is that, should I be trying to center it, or does that just make everything that I'm shooting sort of look the same? I like this photo on the right, so I'm surprised that I do, because I'm usually like trying to constantly center that road to be right in the middle. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, in this case, it's creative license. So what I wanted to do was make this big tree here
Oh,
the
interesting.
focal point. Because
Okay.
the way the light was happening, you had to be there. the,
Yeah, yeah.
the light was moving across this hillside, and I was trying to capture it as it hit here, and so that was the focal point. And it just so happened that I had these handy fence posts that helped, create this leading line right to where I wanted everybody to look.
Oh, cool.
So the answer is again, it guides the viewer through the image. So it depends on where you want them to go. Now, you don't necessarily want to take them out of the frame. That's that's not necessarily a good thing. So you want to keep them in the frame, but it doesn't have to be dead center all the time.
Okay, cool.
So
Thank you.
now it's time for the good,
Good.
the bad, and the ugly. All right, gang. Are we?
One of my favorite movies.
Depending upon how old you are, you may or may not have seen this movie. Anyhow,
If you don't know who
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood is, he's in one of these photos. I'll give you a big hint.
yeah. Anyhow, okay. So, all right,
All right.
audience. All right, I want to hear, what do you think about this image? Let's have some feedback. Chitter
Yep.
chatter. What do we got,
Good.
Linda?
What
Anything?
what do you think is good about it though? Talk about what do you think is good? If you think it's good and if you don't, biker coming into the image. Yep. I like that. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Okay, so Linda, tell me what they're saying.
Okay. Good bikers coming into the image. The subject is lost in the background. Good landscape though. Huh. Oh, that's interesting. I think it's a color contrast question that Jim brought up. Good
Okay.
motion. Yeah. Split in half, nice color, good balance between foreground, midground, and background, says David Liu.
Hey, did
He's
you
on one
guys
of the intersection lines, but it's all the same color. So people are sensitive to the color issue.
color? Yeah. Okay. So, did you leak my presentation to these guys? Okay, so here we go. So one thing that nobody got was the horizon is level. Hooray!
Yay!
Yeah, and if somebody got this one, it's balanced in terms of the distribution of background, middle ground, and foreground, and they definitely got this. The rider is moving into the frame. Now, in this case, we talked about somebody mentioned that there was, some difficulty separating this particular rider, but the rider is more in focus than the background. But I do take the point that it could be better if there wasn't such a homogeneous color match up here.
Don, and
Because
you and I have talked about that. When I lead group rides and when you do as well, we'll talk about, can we get cyclists to at least wear brighter jerseys?
jerseys, yeah, right.
You've got some great photos coming up that really show that.
Show that, yeah. Okay, gang.
What's wrong?
Audience participation.
Good, bad, or ugly?
Good, bad, ugly.
What do you guys like about this photo and what do you not like about it?
We're getting any feedback?
Not yet. We're gotta give them a second.
Okay.
Doesn't like the rider in the shadow. Okay, but lots of
Oh.
shadows. Yeah, people are catching up on that. Scattered subjects and subjects in shadows. Overlapped rider, too much sky, too little foreground, too many objects, no central focus. Bad subjects are spread out.
All right. Wow.
That's awesome.
People are paying. You guys are paying attention. I like that. Yep. Riders are in the shadow. If you either taken the picture a little bit before or a little bit later, they'd be out of the shadow, and they are overlapping each other. So you've got this. There's no separation here between these two riders, and and then
wait. We got more comments coming in. So go back.
Okay. All right. I'll go back.
Stop jumping the gun. One of the comments is also great contrast between red road and green trees. And that's from Kim and Wayne, and I suspect they know exactly which road this is actually even taken on, so
Yeah.
they know how beautiful.
Yeah. And then somebody also mentioned the fact that, there's this group over here. Where's my little, I keep losing my little pointer here. There's these
Oh, we
guys
can
way,
see 'em.
way back there, and then these guys in the foreground. And, you might want to decide, okay, who am I photographing? Who is the subject? Is it this group of writers here, or is it this group of writers back here? And if it's these guys, you probably want to have waited until they became a larger element in the frame, because they're too far away and they're lost in the woods. All right. Now here's another current. Anybody want to comment on this one?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get some good comments on that. Backlit, it's a backlit photo. Bad subject, backlit, so mainly backlit.
Yeah.
Need more light on subject's face, cannot see the subject. Yep. Shows the lake really well. Shadows are distracting.
Yep.
Bike's half in the shadow. Yeah. bike
Yeah,
is
there you go. Okay. So here you've got a really bright background
Handlebar in the
and
foreground. Yep.
and a nice lake. But this gal's completely in the dark. She's in the shadow, can't see her face. And so, she becomes a silhouette. And unless one way of mitigating this would be, if you know how to use your flash on your phone, you could try illuminating her and providing some balance between the bright background and the foreground here, or her as a subject. But overall, it's like, what's this thing down here? Is it a handlebar hanging out or something like that? So there's overall, it's a snapshot. You a couple of seconds of, hey, why don't you move over here? You could have moved her back towards the lake and maybe put her in the where we got some sunlight coming in. It would have avoided the distractions in the foreground, and gotten a really nice photo. And because like for me, I'm looking at this thing and I go, somebody wanted to document their friend riding at this really beautiful lake, and you kind of want to capture them both, but you want to make the rider the central element. And what they've done here is, made a common mistake. It happens all the time.
Okay,
Rob.
we're gonna have Rob's gonna ask you a question, so go ahead, Rob.
Sorry, I didn't have a question.
Oh, okay, sorry, you had your hand raised.
All right, Rob.
I put him back on mute.
Grab a beer, man.
I've got
Okay.
the power, yeah.
All right. So, ask yourself when you're out there, what's going on? What else, what am I going to encounter when I'm out on the road? And so, depending upon where you are, what kind of trail you're riding, here's another, it's more of a mountain bike single track, but it's this really, it's a nice dirt surface, but it's going through this forest and you're, at this time of the year, it's got all this fall color. And, yeah, okay. And, I'm not a fan of taking pictures of people from the back, but, it's a way of telling a story. And then, for people in the audience who are engaged in, developing the route guides for the Dirty Freehub gang, there are some important things that you need, should be capturing. And actually, we don't talk about it today, but you should go out with a shot list of key things that you want, and some of those things would be these, trailheads, signs along the way, navigation landmarks, and they. Even if you're not, developing a route guide, I mean, you're just out having fun on the route. This kind of photo helps you. You look back at it and go, oh yeah, I remember that place. Yeah, I know where that bridge goes. Yeah, and so you can kind of cross-reference it back to, a trail if you're looking at, a Strava trail or, something in Wahoo or that kind of a thing. Get off the bike. If you're riding with a group, here's, get down, get funky. You can get some interesting angles here. This is a springtime shot in Park City that I took. And we got some nice flowers in the foreground, and these gals are coming down on their mountain bikes and made for a pretty nice photo, I thought, So, and then if you're, the route you're on is got some technical sections. You might want to document that, show what people are going to expect because, nobody likes a surprise. If you got, if you look at a lot of the route guides that, Kevin and Linda and the other contributors provide is, there's the occasional stream you have to ford, that kind of thing. There's, those kinds of obstacles. It's nice to know there you're gonna you need to be ready for that kind of thing, right? So some more stuff, in terms of just how you shoot and shoot with your camera in portrait orientation and also in landscape orientation. And that gives you images that are well suited for the various social media types that you might want to post to. Because I'm not a big fan of Instagram, but they use that portrait, and so you got to have it up and down. And I'm more of a landscape kind of guy, left and right. I like it that way, but that's it.
So one of the questions you're getting, Don, is how do you carry your 35 millimeter when cycling? So a majority of Dirty Freehub shots actually are done just by using iPhones, but Don does carry.
Well, I have a very lightweight camera that I have. I skunked around and found a strap that secures the camera to my body so it doesn't bounce around. And prior to that, I have a handlebar bag, and so I would carry my camera in the handlebar bag, and I'm not carrying a DSLR or even a mirrorless camera. I have a smaller compact camera. It's a high-end piece of gear, but but it's small and it's light. And one of the reasons that I got it is because I want to be able to take it on hikes and rides and that kind of a thing. And so that, I found this strap that secures the thing, keeps it from bouncing around, because that can be treacherous. So hopefully that answers.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
And then, while you're out there, well, here's a scene, and this is a stretch of in plain view again, and kind of boring. We got some trees, but really, we had a whole group of people out there. And so, and this is, Linda was talking about this earlier. What I did was, we all had come to a stop just prior to this. We were, taking a water break, and I scooted down the trail because I knew they'd be coming, and it's, set myself up and just waited till they were coming back towards me, and I captured a bunch of shots, including this one. The only problem with that is I had a whole ass to catch up with them. And yeah,
well,
so that was an effort because nobody stopped and let me catch up after I took the photos. I'm not riding with you guys anymore.
I know the real secret in Dirty Freehub is the reason why there's lots of pictures of me is because I'm a slower rider, so I'm easy to shoot.
Yeah. So this can be, if you're out there having fun with your buds, why not document it, so, and then, also we talk about this a little bit is, if there's things that you run into along the trail, like, the grates or in the lower left-hand side, this is a stream that was full of rocks up in, oh God, I can't remember.
I don't remember.
Anyhow, it was up the hill, or big like this rock here. I don't know if everybody can follow it. It wasn't always there. This is along a trail called Lava and Water, and you know, one day we're zipping down, and all of a sudden there's this huge freaking boulder that had come rolling down sometime during the night, and that was kind of scary. And then there's other like man-made obstacles like posts, and these things could hurt you. So
But I
document.
also, I also think they tell part of the story. So I like taking pictures of obstacles. I think they're kind of fun to include in your list of what you're shooting. I think they're fun.
Yeah, thank you. I do too. And now, this is for the route developers. We Dirty Freehub has been working on all access routes, and so what you want to do is try and document areas where some of the all access riders can have easy entree to, or ways to get around some of the obstacles they might find. So on the right hand side, a lot of people ride through this because through these two trees. It's not really hard to do and to get around. You can see the trails over here, but this access is wide open on this side, and it goes to the same exact place. And so documenting that really helps accessible riders understand what kind of obstacles or access they're going to actually have when they're out on a ride, which is a good thing. Then there's a whole plethora of other stuff you might see or experience, and you might run into you might ride the same route a dozen times and run into all kinds of funny different things that you might miss or catch. Buildings, barns, cemeteries, interesting cloud formations, all kinds of funny signs like that Mr. Rogers neighborhood sign. That's out in the area of the Palouse, if you know where that is. So is this barn. So yeah, actually, so are these funny
Building.
genes. These guys that are over there. Things like water reflections. And Lynn and I were talking about this the other day. Okay, maybe it rained recently and you're zipping down a trail and there's this huge puddle. Well, you know what? Stop. Get off your bike and take a look at what's being reflected off that puddle. And especially if there's no wind and the thing is like a mirror, you can come up with some really cool compositions, really. The forest canopy.
We have some from Moab when it rained a lot in Moab, where you've got like all these really cool rock formations and you've got the reflection right off the puddles. It was really fun.
Yeah. The forest canopy, I showed you a shot earlier in the presentation. Food stops, bathrooms, that kind of a thing, that's important. And then, to aid in navigation, things that are, what do you see at the trailhead? What are there facilities there? And so I took these shots. This is at the Cascade Lakes Welcome Center. And so this is what, if you're driving up the road, you can see, oh, here's my turn, right? And what am I going to find there? Well, I'm going to find some water stops. There's an EV charging station if I've got that. There is a restroom facility here. And then, here's another route. This is up in Metolius that, basically provides local information about the route and the area and also map kind of data. That's all important is, nobody wants to get lost. When they're out riding. Kevin did a whole thing on recent webinar
navigation,
on navigation. It was really good. Yeah. What 3 words, right? What was that? Everybody should look up What 3 Words.
Oh,
It's a
yeah,
very, very interesting app to help
With navigation.
help with navigation in cases of emergencies and things like that. It's a free app that you can download, and really interesting. And then God knows what you're going to find on the trail. You got the furry guys, you got the friendly dogs with big sticks, birds. Around here, if there's a pine cone, there's a squirrel. That's all there is to it. So a couple of words about this is respect their space. If you're lucky enough to see one and get close enough, then go ahead, go for it. Try and capture them. But you want to give them the room. We're basically in their backyard, running around. So you don't want to disturb them. And then, okay, another thing we tend to do is since we're writing in groups a lot of times is we want to document the event, right? We got the whole group of people. We want to have fun, like Linda's got all her buds over here at the Ashwood Inn or whatever, and it helps us document events. A little kumbaya session over here on the left, that kind of a thing. But so when you're shooting these kinds of scenes, you want to, again, you saw the backlit situation earlier here. So the best environment you can find is one that I call open shade, and that you won't always find that. So open shade is an area where you've got maybe some trees that are providing literally shade without the dappled light that comes through. It can also be created by clouds, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And then, when you're composing, I mentioned about, the pine tree growing out of somebody's head, and, well, don't cut off their limbs, if you, if at all possible when you're composing. And here's some more. So here's a couple of examples. So on the left here, God knows what the heck this is. This distracting element is all scraggly as all get out. And then the lighting, the way it, the people on the right-hand side of the frame here are fairly well exposed, but as you go off to the left, they drop into the shade, and you couldn't tell who any of these folks are. It's just there's a lot of people there. And so it's like, huh? So believe me, taking a photograph of this group would be a challenge, but you can do a better job. Okay. Now, how do you do that? Well, here's a smaller group to the right. Hey, Linda, notice anything about this photo?
You can see everybody.
Yeah, but something else from our conversation the other day.
I'm not sure.
Is the car there?
Oh, he took the car out. There was a white car right behind
that was a private thing. Anyhow, so this big green thing up here says if they can't see the camera can't see them. So that's an important thing when you're taking a group photo. Try and orient folks where they're front lit, where there's no shadows on their face if possible. And actually I prefer to have people without their sunglasses, but that's hard to do because if you're facing the sun and people tend to squint, and that's not necessarily comfortable. But at least if you get them front lit, that's okay. Their faces are all visible, and you can see everybody's face. Right? You want to make sure, and because in these group photos, some people are shy. They tend to hang back. Like this person's. I would have preferred her to have been a little further over. But and I tell my audience, if I'm I'm shooting the photo like this, I go, if you can't see the camera can't see you. And make that a little mantra, a little skill, and then you'll end up with. And oh, by the way, we talked about taking multiple shots. Take a whole bunch, because again, people will have different expressions on their face, and if you take 4 or 5 shots, which nowadays doesn't take very long at all to do, you'll be able to at least choose from the lot and pick the best result. So, also while you're out there, what do you run into? If there's some really nice wildflowers or insects, Linda's really into bugs. You might find, she's got tarantulas down there in Arizona and Mexico, lizards, you know, other crazy things like this flag that, I was riding the route called Big Red, and this was, we just kind of ran across this thing, and like somebody somebody put a little flag in a stump. It's just, added character to the ride is something else. Now, if you're running along and there's like an old school or a barn or something like that, an architectural element of building. We could talk for hours about this kind of thing, but a couple of things to try and avoid would be, the flat view like this one on the left. Stay away from that. It's not really a pleasing image whatsoever, and if you can include people, they can help or in this case, bikes too. They can help add scale to the overall image so you can, determine, how, if this was an old schoolhouse, was this a three room schoolhouse, one room, whatever, that kind of a thing. And then the big cardinal sin of all architectural photographers is vertical should be vertical. And people constantly make images that look like this. They're collapsing. This is an effect called keystoning, and it's an artifact of tilting the camera forward usually. And what it does is that it captures the vertical lines of the image, in this case, this school, merging together. And I say try to keep verticals vertical, because depending upon where you are when you're taking this photo, it may be extremely difficult to do that. Ideally, if you were level, looking straight at the image on the same level as the front of the building, then it would be much easier to do this. And if you are, then pay attention. Watch the sides of the building. Are they straight up and down? Same thing goes if you're out on the on a trail and look at the trees. Are the trees straight up and down? They usually grow that way. We get some weird looking ones, but for the most part, they're going straight up and down. So you want to try and keep verticals vertical wherever you can, and that'll kind of help set you apart. So, a few other things. We're almost done here, so hang in, guys. Try to avoid shooting midday if you can, because if it's a bright sunny day, then you get a lot of harsh light and you can get a lot of shadows that can kind of mess with your images. But it is what it is. So if that's when you're out, then go for it. But to try to avoid shooting on midday. And then, speaking of a lot of light, watch out for what we call the dappled light, which is the harsh shadows mixed with bright sunlight coming through trees. And we saw a couple of examples earlier where, when riders are coming down the trail and, they were kind of splattered with different, spots of light and shadow, that kind of a thing. And it's not the best situation. If you can avoid it, we're not trying to be, award-winning photographers here, but we're trying to improve our skills. Now, another thing, clouds. I love me the clouds, man. The clouds are my friend, because they're the big giant diffuser in the sky, and they help get rid of the harsh shadows and dappled light, because they filter out the sunlight. And, hopefully, what's good about clouds is, especially on a day where you've got a lot of high clouds and they're not like, storm, like, we're gonna have a thunderstorm any second now, but they can actually help overall quality of the exposure of the scene. And then, don't be so lazy. Get off your bike, work the scene, try different angles, go up the hill, go down the hill, move around. And, some of this is going to require some, cooperation with your riding buddies. If you're out, it depends on if you're out on your own or if you're riding with a gang. And, one of the things I always struggle with, which is, depending upon who I'm riding with, I don't want to be a burden, that kind of, nobody wants to, harsh their mellow, right? That kind of thing. They want to, fortunately, the buds that I have, we're pretty laid back. We kind of ride the party pace. And, if we want to stop and take a photo, we stop and take a photo, so not a big deal. So, yeah, attaboys to my gang. And, so, and I talked about this earlier, you've got this instrument in your hand, learn how to use that thing. I mean, that kind of goes with virtually anything. If you're playing a musical instrument, just look at it as the same way. The more features that these, Apple and all these Android guys, they keep jamming these phones full of all this fancy stuff. Learn how to use that. There's like 8 gazillion YouTube videos on how to use your phone in your camera. And, if you're really interested in this and you want to improve your skills, head on over to YouTube and start looking, because it'll improve your output significantly, and it'll help you learn some of the editing stuff that we talked about earlier as well. It's not just the kinds of capture. Today's discussion was more on the front end of the process, which is viewing the scene, deciding what it is you want to focus on, and composing it in a pleasant manner, and then capturing it. And then there's a whole back end piece of this that you need to pay attention to improve the overall photos. And then take a hell of a lot of shots. It's not like I'm trying to the old film days where you had to drop your film off. You had 36 exposures, and you had to take them to the drugstore or to the photomat or whatever. And if anybody's old enough to remember that stuff, with digital photography, it is free, basically. So now, hopefully this link is still good, but there's a website called Petapixel that they've done an extremely good job of documenting photographic composition techniques, and you can read all about it right here. And I would encourage people to do that to overall improve. And anybody's welcome to email me or call me or whatever. I'll be glad to talk to anybody about any of this stuff. So that's it.
Thank you very much.
What time
And
is it?
other than that, thank you so much. And this has just been a webinar by Dirty Freehub. And should you feel inclined, we always accept generous donations. That's how we're funded, is through your kind and generous donations. So
Yes.
thank you so much.